Board. All right, here we are, friends. Thanks so much for coming to join us for this conversation. Supposed to be live on Facebook, but that didn't quite work out tonight because of technology. Wah wah. But I am Sean Hayes. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I am the executive director at Trans Northland, as well as a co-founder of the organization. And I'm just really excited to have this conversation here tonight with a bunch of friends who know some things about safety and violence prevention and how to take care of ourselves. Um, so, yes, just feeling really grateful to each of them. I want to thank y'all for joining us to share your wisdom. Very, very grateful for it. And for those who are able to join us on Zoom or are watching this later, thank you. We're glad you have found this conversation, and hopefully it can be a little bit helpful for you. So just a couple quick announcements before we jump in here. One is that Trans Northland is helping out with the new Council on LGBTQIA2S plus Minnesotans. And they are working on a statewide Minnesota community needs survey for our community. And so I wanted to mention that if you haven't seen that floating around social media yet, or you haven't seen a survey link, keep an eye out, and I will definitely share the information on where you can go and take that survey. And just for information, this is for anyone who's 18 plus who identifies as part of the LGBTQIA2S plus community. And then there is also a survey for parents, for anyone who has a child that identifies as a part of the community as well. So, and one thing I learned is that this is like the first survey for our community, statewide comprehensive, that has been done in like the last 30 plus years. So this is going to get us a lot of really good information on what our community needs and what the folks down at the state legislature can do to help us out. So I'll share more info about that. And then my last announcement is just a quick reminder and invitation for you all, if you're able and in and around Duluth, come and join us for our Trans Day of Visibility event, which is happening this coming Sunday, March 30th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Depot in downtown Duluth. We'll have music, food from Bowls and Things, performances from Elsa Murray, Mara Lovejoy, and Campfire Tranarchists, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So come on down for that. And that I feel like is enough of me talking. I'm going to steer us into our conversation for tonight. And I would love to take some time to go through and have our esteemed panelists introduce themselves. And just, yeah, we have a couple questions. And then if there's questions that come up from the folks attending, we would love to pull those in as well. But how about I start off with my friend and our amazing board chair, Heather.
Hey everybody. My name is Heather Thonbold. My pronouns are they, them. And as Sean said, I am the current chair of the board of Trans Northland. Um, and I'm really excited to be here. Happy to share some things that I've learned along the way about personal safety, about community safety, and yeah, looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Awesome. How about Jack?
Hey everybody, Jack Fonder, he, him pronouns, and I am not a Minnesotan. I'm sorry, everyone. I am here from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I work for the Transformation Project in Sioux Falls. We are the only nonprofit in the state of South Dakota that is directly to support the trans and gender diverse communities. And we also recently opened up the first ever LGBTQ plus community center in Sioux Falls, the Prism Center. Our nonprofit also did that. So we've been learning all kinds of things about doing events and having our own space and how to keep that safe. So I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. Super glad to have you here. And how about
Hi, I'm Kimmy Hall, and I'm one of the owners of Security. Hopefully, some of you have heard about us. We do a lot of de-escalation training, situational awareness. We also do a lot of marshaling training. We work with the majority of, I think most of the prides happening throughout Minnesota, whether it's there in person or helping with building safety plans, etc. Um, do a lot of work with Out Front. We just love to be around everyone.
And last but not least, say
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Sam Koshelwright. I use she, her pronouns. CEO of Security. Kimmy and I kind of help steer this crazy ship in this crazy world we're in. Do a lot of training for folks, like Kimmy mentioned, on the ground. Get to help out with a lot of events. Really, really fortunate to help people think about their own safety too. So really excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
yeah, super grateful for all y'all taking the time tonight to join us. And I will just mention, yeah, for anyone who's been at our event Trans Joy Fest, you've definitely seen, probably met some of the folks from Security. They've worked with us over the last couple years and do a great job and are the type of folks who would come up and introduce themselves and chat with you. So if you recognize them, that's probably where. So thank you again. I'm going to just jump us into this conversation. And again, I kind of told our panelists we're going to keep things organic, but just sort of some prompting, maybe thoughts and questions. As all of us are aware, things are stressful these days, to say the least. The current administration, all of the executive orders, just there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think there's a lot of anger as well, from folks within our community, the LGBTQ plus community, I mean, as well as folks outside of that community. And I think, for me personally, since the election and especially since the inauguration, a lot of folks have wanted to check in about safety and what are the best ways for us to take care of our folks, our chosen family members, our LGBTQ plus kids, our trans friends and relatives. And so that's sort of what prompted this conversation, because I thought we're all having the same conversation in one-off, so let's bring it together and kind of dig into what it may look like for us as trans folks, as gender expansive people, and as queer folks in general, how we can continue to take care of ourselves and our loved ones, as well as continuing to fight for our rights in whatever way that may look like, whether it's we're going to protests or art ins at Target, or we're writing letters to our representatives. There's so many ways that folks can show up and fight back and fight for our community, but I kind of want to open it up and maybe starting with friends from Security. So this theme of visibility and safety in the current political climate. So, and either one of y'all could start, you can pass it off. But how would you say, our first question for tonight is, how do you balance the need for trans visibility and representation with these ever increasing concerns around safety, especially in light of the recent political and legislative actions targeting our community?
I think it's important to be as true to yourself as you can be. For some folks, it's going to be easier to be visible. For some folks, it's going to be easier to have a community and have a space where they can be visible and be themselves. I don't think there is a one answer for anybody. I think it's really dependent on, the support you have around you, the community you're in. And if you don't have that kind of support in your community, where can you find it and where can you build it?
I think the other hard part about it is when I think about like how can you still be you in public while you're going out, um, but still try to mitigate any kind of dangers that you might run into. And one thing that I feel sucks to say is you can't you should never pick a fight that you can't win. And what I mean by this is like, if you are out, if you're going out to go clubbing, going to eat, whichever one, go with somebody. Don't be solo. Don't do it solo, right? Always have extra people with you. If you're going down to someplace and somebody on a corner starts yelling at you, and there's 4 or 5 of them, you know, the hard part sometimes is to be able to just keep walking and not confront it. And it sucks. Believe me, I know. I never want to walk away from something. But those are those times where the safest thing for you would be to keep walking. When you get home, get into that bathroom mirror, come up with all those comments that you had in your head that you couldn't say out loud, you know? Because honestly, with the atmosphere that we are living in, with the entitlement that more and more people are getting to be able to be more openly hateful, you don't put you or somebody else in a position where you could potentially get harmed, physically harmed, you know? Um, the other half of that would be to make sure that you start doing that you look into how can you wake up every day and get mentally prepared to go about your day, you know, because there may be days where you go out, you're looking fucking fabulous, and somebody across the street's got a shitty sign saying something, whatever, and you're like, oh, I want to just maybe you flip them off and you keep walking. You don't give in to that temptation of fighting back with them, because that's going to give them what they want, and then that can escalate things to a point where you might not be able to handle that and you might get hurt. And that's why I'm saying just walk away from it if you can. All right. Um, and I think it's 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 a crappy position, I think, but unfortunately, when we're talking about the next 4 years, not knowing what's going to happen, seeing what has been already happening, and we're talking about how do you stay safe publicly, you could be yourself. Minnesota, unfortunately, is still a place that is considered a safe, state for a lot of people. While we also know, living here, that while it might be safer, there's still a lot of bullshit out there that you have to put up with, right? Um, my biggest concern is that I can deal with words. I don't want to have to deal with the physical um, dangers, because when you get into the physical side of danger, that's where we can lose people.
Yeah, definitely agree. And Jack, I was just thinking about you too. And just as a little backstory, I had heard Jack as a podcast episode guest on a podcast I love and listen to, and we'll definitely shout out Translash. If you don't follow them, you definitely should be. They report on everything that's happening right now, especially with politics and what's facing the trans community. And so I heard Jack interviewed on that show and just sharing about your experience living in this very rural area, and how sort of safety has always been y'all's concern, and that hasn't necessarily changed with this new administration coming in. And so I'd just love to hear, what you're thinking about when you think about safety and continuing to keep your folks safe where
Yeah. So yeah, we're in South Dakota, which, when Sean reached out, was like, hey, I'd love to hear like some things that you do. I'm like, really? In Minnesota, you guys even have to worry about that, right? Because we do live in this where we're like, oh, well, Minnesota's safe, right? So you guys are fine. There's nothing bad going on there. Obviously, that's not accurate, but here in South Dakota, we've always been dealing with this, right? Like even before Trump took office, we were like, it's always been this way. We've always had to make sure that we had security and that we were worried about what could happen, who can do this. Even so, for example, we just opened up this community center, and I would love to have a huge sign so that everybody knows where we are, but we can't do that. And we knew that, like, we can't have huge signage. So people just have to You know, we have to make sure that they can find us in other ways because we can't do that. That's not safe. We know that we would get targeted. We have bookstores and bars that hang pride flags and they get targeted on a weekly, monthly basis here, like all the time, like year round. That's just the way it is. Like their doors get broken, their flags get torn down, their businesses get vandalized, and that's just the way it is here. And I think it makes it really hard when you talk about how can we still be visible though, right? Because queer people and trans people need to be visible. We need to be seen. Otherwise, this isn't going to change. If we can't educate people and make them see us as human beings, this is never going to change, right? But then how do we balance that? How do we make ourselves visible, but not make ourselves a target? So one thing that we've been really trying to do as of late is if you have not been visible in the past and you are kind of living a stealth life, or you kind of never put yourself out there, you've maybe never been on a panel, or you've never given an interview to a newspaper, we're saying keep it that way. Now's not your time to shine, unfortunately. Now is the time for those of us that have already made a conscious effort to be public figures. We just have to step up a little bit more right now because we're already out there. If you Google Jack Fonder for the rest of eternity, you're always going to know that I'm trans. Within 5 seconds, you'll be able to find that out. And that's just the reality. But I chose that life when I chose to do this work. So I really, really do always like to maybe over educate people when I'm like, hey, we're looking for panelists or we're looking for speakers for something. I like to reiterate this. You can't go back from this because of the way technology is, because of the way we can get information now. Once your name is out there connected to something, it's never not going to be that. So if you're a trans person and you want to live a stealth life someday, that's not the way to go. And a lot of people are like, I want to help and I want to be visible and I want to speak up, but I don't have the energy or I don't feel safe. That's okay. You don't have to. You do what feels right for you, and somebody else will step up and do the work. It can't always be you. It can't always be me. That's okay. There will be someone else that will step up and do that. So yes, we've always kind of had to worry about that safety factor. So you know, we don't have signage on our buildings. Our door is locked all the time, 24/7. It is never not locked. You have to ring a bell to get into our building. That's just a reality of it. Anything we do, if we do any event, even if it's a youth event and there's going to be 20 people there, we have a security person there. We're also very much aware of the fact that, and just to reiterate, our community center is for the entire LGBTQ plus community, but there is a lot, our nonprofit is specifically for trans people. So we do have a lot of trans folks that we serve on a daily basis. But there's a lot of queer and trans people that have a lot of trauma when it comes to police officers too, and we're very much aware of that. So we have done our due diligence and made sure that we research security places and that, you know, they're actually people that we want working with us. We know that there are safe police officers in our community that we can reach out to and be like, hey, this is the event we're doing, or we make sure that they're the ones working when we're doing the Pride festivals and things like that. We also don't have officers ever at an event unless it's Pride. Every other event that we personally do, we do not have anybody there in a uniform. Everybody is in plain clothing. That makes everybody feel more comfortable. We also don't have them hovering around people at events. They're in the doorways, watching for people coming in and out, watching from a distance, but also they're there, right? So I think those are some important things to keep in mind because we also don't want the community to feel uncomfortable because we're trying to keep them safe. So, I mean, those are just a little bit of things that we do, but we do always have that in the back of our mind for every single event that we're doing. Security is always top of the list. We do recommend that people do not have like signage on their cars if they're going to go to protests. If you're going to a trans protest and you have a pride flag on your car, you can be a target now because they're going to be like, that person is definitely at that parade or that protest and they're okay with that and I'm not. So now I'm going to follow them to their house and assault them. Like those are real things that you need to think about. I had to take a trip to Texas recently and I had a transformation project, our nonprofit, we had a sticker and somebody ripped it off in Texas. They don't even know who that is, but it has a trans flag on it, right? So it just simple things like that. Like as much as I want to advertise my nonprofit all over my car and I want people to know that I'm an ally, it's not safe, right? And then if you think about if you have a family, if you have kids, if you have a spouse, or if you have any family member that's going to drive that vehicle, now there potentially could be a target too. So just some of those things that you wouldn't normally think about are just good, like everyday kind of things that we like to tell people. And if you are followed, leaving an event, drive to a public place, drive to a police, to a police station, somewhere public. Do not drive to your house if you feel like someone is following you. If you drive to a police station, most times they're gonna like be like, okay, never mind, we'll just go somewhere else. We're not gonna deal with this anymore. So yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you think I should touch on, Sean?
I mean, no, I think you're nailing it. I mean, honestly, I think those are some, I mean, you're already sort of touching on our next question too, which is, and we can just sort of add this all into the mix, but some actual practical tips, that might help some of our community folks feel safer, and I've been, doing planning around our upcoming Trans Day of Visibility event, and we've had folks asking, what is the safety plan, and folks expressing that they're not sure if they feel safe to come out and to be at this event, and so I think those practical tips are really like what can be the most helpful. And then I think hearing from, Sam and Kimmy about like how to just avoid confrontation as well, avoiding the potential for harm. I think all of this. And then it really comes down to each individual person in the community, right? What feels best, what feels safest for you? If you want to go to that event, maybe you show up with a buddy, right? You don't go alone. Like these are some really easy things that folks can do. And of course, we don't want to go and rip off our bumper stickers and do these things. It sucks. I think we're naming that just out in the open here. Like this sucks that we have to have this conversation at all. And yet, yeah, so I'm feeling grateful for those things that are already kind of coming out as y'all are sharing. And Heather, as you've sort of heard from these three, I'm curious what's coming up for you, and anything you might add, or ideas around how do we stay safe.
Yeah, thanks. A couple things have really resonated for me. I think the most important thing is find your people. Find those folks that you feel safe with, that are going to have your back, that are going to be that are going to be your people, right? So like I am really fortunate that I have the most amazing spouse, and when we're out in public, and like, for example, just something as simple as like, hey, I need to go use the bathroom, like she always says, are you okay, or do you want me to come with you? Right? That's always like our default. And there are certain places where I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, the co-op grocery store in town. I'm not really that concerned that somebody is going to do something or say something at somewhere like that. But I've had some really not great interactions with folks who think I'm in the wrong bathroom, quote unquote, like at Menards or at, the grocery store, or, all these other places. And so just being able to have somebody who understands that like not every place is necessarily an unsafe place, but it could become one if somebody thinks that I'm not where I'm supposed to be, right? And so I think that like that's probably the biggest thing for me is find your people. And if I think that some of us are, that's easier said than done, right? Not everybody is gonna have somebody who's gonna come with them every single time they leave their house. But I think as much as we can, that's probably the biggest piece of learning for me. The other thing is, you know, when Jack was talking about, if you haven't been like out and visible and have your name attached to a trans movement or an LGBTQIA plus movement, something, now may not necessarily be the time to be starting that. It really reminds me. So I'll come out again a little bit. I was like a band nerd in high school, and in addition to a lot of sports and other things, but like, and it reminded me like when we were playing like really challenging pieces of music, I was in the trumpet section, and like we would coordinate when each of us would take a breath during certain pieces of music so that we weren't all taking the breath at the same time and that the music would continue, right? And so I think that that's kind of a an analogy that I like to use in this work, right? Like for those of you who may not be visible or may feel safer to be stealth or don't, necessarily feel safe having your name attached to things, that's fine. For the next 3 or 4 years, like let the folks that have been doing that work continue and you support them from the sidelines, from the background, however that looks for you. And so um, when we don't all have to be doing the same work at the same time, right? And I think that that's the big key for me when it comes to trying to have a sense of safety and community and all of these wonderful things that like everybody should have, right? Everybody should feel safe. Everybody should have community. Everybody should be loved and accepted for who they are. And the reality of our country right now is that that is not necessarily that's not necessarily true for everyone. And so as kind of we move into, the beginning of, kind of this weird time of like people feeling emboldened to, you know, attack or say mean things or visibly harass or whatever. Like I'm 6'2" and I weigh, 215 pounds. I'm a large person. I don't really have the opportunity to hide in many places, right? When I joined the Air Force back in 2009, the only thing I wanted to do was blend in because then like the folks wouldn't, start screaming at me. But for those of you who have a military background, like I just wanted to blend in, right? That's never been my MO. That's never been who I am, and I'm okay with that. Like I've chosen to live into kind of that reality, and that for the most part I feel safe doing that. Not everybody, like if you're a trans person of color, especially a trans woman of color, that may not be a safe option for you. And so whatever is going to be that safe option for you that makes you feel safe in the various spaces that you're going to be in, then do that. I think that there's kind of this misconception that everybody has to be like, waving the pride flag and having a parade every time you leave your house. And it's like sometimes going to the grocery store is just going to the grocery store, right? Like we just need to know where our safe places are, who our safe people are, and then like Jack was talking about to be strategic about the time that you decide to have your name potentially or your face attached to a movement. I think that's a really really important point. Um, and I think that's a really important thing for folks to remember too.
If I could just add to everything we were talking about, um, have making plans, having plan out how you're going to go about your day, who are you going to talk to, um, arrival times, letting, somebody else in your circle know so that if you're not home by a certain time, they can check up on you. Um, Another big piece that I kind of wanted to throw out there too, because I know that just within the last 30 minutes of what we're talking about, it's scary sounding. It really is, and but I want to stress to everybody that this is not us giving up. This is us holding on and building a foundation so that in the next when he's out of here, we have something that we've been working on for 4 years, building it and making that foundation stronger and stronger. Okay. Um, there's going to be an awful lot of people, especially I think within our trans youth, that are going to be going through a lot of mental and emotional pain. And as elders and as people that have gone through this type of fight before, I think it's up to us to be able to be there and be aware of it and let people, if you can, let those people know that you're there, you know, whether if they need a ride, if they need somebody to go with them to go grocery shopping, you know, any of those stuff. If you are available to be of service, let people know that. The other thing that I would also mention too, social media platforms. Maybe this is the time that you start privatizing your social media platforms. One thing that we do suggest is get rid of the hashtags. Hashtags are so easy to keystroke, you know, drag story hours. So that drag story, boom, right there. Every right wing out there is looking for that hashtag. So just be smarting, just be more smart about how we go about our day-to-day things, have those backup plans available, um, and if you have the capacity, be available to those who may need you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you added that part because, you know, like within your friend groups, within your community, everybody has their own role to play. Not everybody's going to show up in the same way. Not everybody is going to have the capacity to be somebody on the front lines, to be somebody to engage with other folks. You know, we need people to fill every role, you know, so learn what is best for you because that's really what all this is about. You know, learn what's best for you because that's how you're going to be able to best show up for other folks.
And
Yeah,
sometimes the
to add,
reality is, sorry, I was going to say sometimes
you
the
go.
reality is what's best for you is doing nothing because that's all you can do that day, and that's okay, that's valid. Don't think, well, I see Jack out here fighting. What am I supposed? I can't just sit here. Yes, you can because I've been there. We've all had our days and our months and our times where we're like, I just can't do it. I need to take time, and that's how we stay. That's how we can continue doing this is recognizing when we need to stop. Um, there are lots of ways that you can help without having to put yourself out there. I know, you know, we talk about the federal level and we talk about who's in office right now, but let's remember we also have our state things too, right? Like we also have legislative session in our states every single year. So those are things that we can help with. Everybody can write a letter, everybody can send an email, everybody can make a phone call, contact your legislators, contact your, you know, your local political leaders, and that's a way that you can help without even having to use your name. You know, we've been going through that here. They unfortunately just passed a bathroom bill here just this last week. So we've been dealing with that. That is 1000% going to target our trans youth. No buts about it. It's going to be horrible, and we are doing what we have to do now to make sure that we can keep these kids alive until we can, you know, hopefully get rid of that. But you know, it doesn't always have to be some grandiose thing. Even small things make a big difference if we all can band together and do them. We need people doing those things. We need people writing letters. We need people to donate money to, you know what I mean? Like there's just so many other things you can do. If doing nothing is what you can do, that's also okay.
I was gonna add, you know, back in 2012, my spouse was working. I'm from Washington State originally, and so we were in the Pacific Northwest, and Aubrey was working for the Freedom to Marry. And, um, you know, I was like, I really want to support the work, but at the time, I was a juvenile detention supervisor. I was in a loud, like boisterous, like just noise and talking and people all the time. And I am an introvert. And so I was like, I can't, I just can't talk to people on the phone. I can't knock on doors. But you know what? I would love to make dinner every night for your staff and bring that by the office so that they can, you know, that they can have something to eat while they're phone banking and while they're doing all this stuff. And so you know, I knew what my limits were, and I found a way that I could still honor what I needed and also support the work. And so um and that's going to be true for everybody. Like not everybody has to be visible. Not everybody has to be you know, out there doing the marching and all of that stuff. Like if that doesn't feel safe for you, then find something that does feel safe for you. Like Jack said, you know, the phone calls, the emails, the writing, the all that stuff. Like we don't all have to be visible necessarily. And so if there's a way that you can find out or that you can figure out what feels safe for you in your context, where you live and in your community, then do that for now. And then if later something else may change, something else um, may present itself a different opportunity that you can work in a different way. But I think that that the one of the most important things that I think about in terms of safety is we all get to define what that is for ourselves, right? So like just like we all define what our gender identity or expression is for ourselves, we also get to decide what feels safe for me, what is safety, and how do I live into honoring that sense that I need to have for myself. And that's a really important thing to recognize and to realize that that's going to look different for everybody. And it doesn't mean that, you know, the person doing the phone banking is more important than the person cooking the dinner. It just means that we all have a role to play, and it's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like running a business, right? The person who is cleaning the bathroom is just as important as the CEO, right? Because we want the bathroom to be clean, right? So everybody's role is just as important as the next person's. It's just doing what feels right for you. Um, and I think some of this like feels really scary and feels really like we all just need to hide and not be out and we like all of these things, but I want people also to be able to gather. You need your community right now. We need it more than ever. So I think some of that is just trusting that the people or researching the organizations that are putting on events like like this right here, is this safe? Like let me check into this and see like how safe is this. And any other events that you're going to, like who's running this, is there going to be security there, like just checking on those things before you decide to show up. Because I definitely don't want people to feel like I just have to stay at home for the next however many years until things feel better, because that's not good for us either. We definitely we want and need to find that community. Um, and just some like basic, like if you're going to an event inside, like when you get there, like just some like quick and easy things you can do are like what are two exits in and out of this place? Like let me just see where they are really quick. Cool, got it. Is there a room I can go into somewhere? Let me find that. Like if I needed to, is there a space I can go in and lock the door? Probably a bathroom. Like those are like they sound really hard, but they're really easy. Like just walk in, scan the room quick, find those things, and it's just gonna make like give you that little sense of like, okay, now I know I have another way in and out other than just this one door. And just speaking from having a community center and working with a lot of neurodivergent people, they need that anyway just to feel comfortable in a space. They just need to know, like, otherwise they feel trapped. Like I'm trapped. There's only this one door over here. Like how else am I going to get out of here? So there are some people whose brains just automatically work that way, but I want everyone to feel it's like we need to be conscious of what could happen, but we also don't want to just live in fear either every day. So if there's a way that you could balance that out, uh, you know, those are just some little like simple suggestions, but we definitely need to make sure that we're still gathering as a community and just again be aware of who's holding the event, right? Who's doing it? If it seems a little then maybe that's not the one you go to. If you trust the organization like we're doing right now tonight, then maybe those are the ones that you attend.
Yeah, um, having a plan, like you said, Jack, that's something a lot of our community has PTSD, right? We've all been through stuff. A lot of us have trauma. Um, how how do we show up in spaces and we decrease that? I find by having a plan, taking a look at where exits are, knowing that if this happens, this is what I do. Having those things built in to your everyday life, and just making a muscle memory, when you do go into the grocery store, when you go to the gas station, when you're at restaurants, when you're out in public spaces, think about this stuff. And it doesn't need to be this big scary thing. One of the things that I really like to tell people, and Kimmy too, we say it a lot in our training. If it's hard to think about it in these big scenarios, think about what would happen if there was a fire. What would happen if there's a tornado? You're going to handle a lot of that stuff in the same way. You know, an emergency is an emergency. And it doesn't need to be this big scary thing for us to think about. And I personally find that having these plans takes some of that hypervigilance away and decreases a little bit of that anxiety.
Man, this is really good, and I also want to just very transparently check in with our panelists because of our tech issues at the beginning. If folks do need to take off, right at 7, that is totally okay. And if you want to stick around for a couple minutes after, we can do that too. So either way, but I was just going to chime in too to say that there's a couple of things that I'm hearing that I really want folks to hear and to like go home with is that safety looks different for every single person in our community. There's no like one right way or like a playbook to be safe all the time. And sort of the question that comes up in my mind thinking about this, hearing y'all talk, is like, if I'm considering going to an event or a hangout or a movie night or whatever it is, maybe a question you could just check in with super basic is, what am I gonna, or how do I feel good and safe at this event? Right. So just thinking about some of those basic things of, do you want to show up by yourself or do you want to show up with some friends? Or so many practical tips coming out here. And I'm gonna say that we'll probably share some of this, type it up and share it in some graphics too, just so folks can easily find these tips that are coming up. This is gold. And then the other thing I wanted to sort of bring into the conversation as well is for our allies, because I think what we're hearing for trans folks, for gender expansive folks, and queer folks is do what feels best for you when it comes to being visible and being out there. And then when I think about our allies, who we've had so many, reaching out to us in the last several months and saying, what can I do? How can I help? Like the things Jack mentioned, you can donate, you can do all these different things. But when thinking about visibility, I guess when it comes to me, I feel like in my heart, I really want our allies to be super visible if they feel safe doing that, right? Wearing a button that says you're an ally, wearing a rainbow sticker, some of these little things are things that I look at when I'm out and about walking down the sidewalk. If I see you have a rainbow button on or whatever, I'm going to feel a lot safer walking next to you on the sidewalk. And I think a lot of our folks in community, especially young folks, are sort of looking for those signs. And that can be another way maybe to feel safe, right? Like if we see these safe space stickers or whatever it is out and about, then we know, okay, there's allies. But I'd love to just hear if anyone wants to chime in about what can allies do to help us.
Well, we definitely need our allies right now. I mean, we always do, but the thing that's mind-boggling to most of us, right? Because we're in this is the trans population specifically is such a small number of people, but we are the target right now. So we can't fight this by ourselves because we're not that many people when it comes right down to it. That is why we need our allies to come and stand beside us and fight this with us because we just don't have the numbers. It's just logistically we don't. They like to make it sound like we are just this massive group of people that's like going to take over the world or something, but that's not the reality. So we do need our allies to show up for us right now more than ever because we need numbers. We need people that are going to fight with us and fight for us when we can't be there to fight for ourselves. We need people at the tables that we're not invited to. Um, so yeah, and like Sean said, just showing something small that's visible that we can see. If I go into any business or any office or any, if I have to go to a doctor or a therapist or anywhere, any business I walk into, I'm going to notice if there is something, if there's a pride flag sticker, if there's a picture, if there's an actual flag somewhere, a queer or LGBTQ plus person will be able to spot that out from a mile away. And it makes a world of difference now. My level is not up here anymore. Now I'm down here. Like, okay, this is a safe space. At least the people that own this place are safe. So I can take a deep breath. I can breathe a little easier. And it doesn't have to be a full size flag. I'm talking like a square sticker in the window or, a picture on your desk or something. It doesn't have to be anything big, but just something that shows you're safe here no matter who you are. I think that is one of the easiest things you can do when it comes to more of like business level stuff, using your pronouns in your email signature if you're allowed to do so. There are some companies that don't allow that, which is unfortunate. But if you are, that's another easy way to be like, oh, this person gets it. They're an ally. I can talk to them if I need to, or at least I know I'm safe with this one person, if not with anybody else. Those are just like really little things that allies can do to be helpful. And obviously showing up, right? Just show up to things if you're comfortable doing that, if you feel safe doing that.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to remember for the cisgender community that the work of trans liberation is the cisgender's community's work, right? So like the just like the work of racial justice, we're not going to put that on the BIPOC community to say no, you do it, right? So like white people or people, we are the ones that are going to hold the work of racial justice and move that forward in ways that the BIPOC community can't because they've been marginalized, even though they're the people of the global majority in certain countries, right? Like, and so I think that the thing that I remember as I do like queer liberation work like more expansively, but in this specific instance when we talk about like what would be most helpful for trans people um and our continued survival and liberation, it's cis people showing up and doing the work to create safety for us so that we get to go into spaces that maybe we historically have not been welcome to go into. And so I think that that's one of the things that I am reminded of as as I move in the world as like a non-binary person, you know, I can create my own little bubble of safety to a certain extent, but in order to have real lasting big systemic changes, that work is the work of cis people to do. And so as an ally, when we talk about how do allies um, do that work, you show up and you create safety by your presence for people who may not feel safe in those groups or in those communities in those spaces. And so I think that that's one of the major things that I think about, in terms of my own creation of safe spaces for other marginalized groups, but also what do I, as a trans mask non-binary person, what do I need? I need a whole lot of cis people to show up so that the 10 trans people that come to an event can just go, okay, I'm here. All these people are here. They've got my back, and I can just be here in my community and take a deep breath and relax.
I think another way that I see to kind of like expand on that I see in my local community, the local political level. My mayor, huge ally. We had a proclamation for the Trans Day of Visibility yesterday. If we can get more allies to fill roles like that at our local level, school boards, your city council, that kind of stuff, that's how we can help create some of that long-term systematic change also.
Yeah, I think we all need to be more aware of what our privileges are, right? White privilege is a real thing. I even know for myself that I have more privilege than a trans woman of color, right? So I am very much aware that our experiences are going to be wholly different in every sense of that word, right? Like me walking down the street right now as a trans man is way different than a trans woman of color walking next to me down the street. Like the odds of somebody hurting me are way less than the odds of somebody hurting her. So we all have privilege that we have to be aware of. And we have to stop looking at that as like, well, why are you saying I'm bad because I have white privilege? We're not. We're saying to use it for good things, right? If you have it, then use it. I use it to spread awareness about trans women and especially trans women of color because that's a little bit of what I can do. I also try to fight for equal rights for women because that's something that I can do because I am sometimes seen as a man in some of these spaces. So I can be invited to the table. They let me talk. They hear what I have to say. So I think we have to stop feeling icky about our privileges that we have because they're there for us to do something good with them. As long as you're using them in a good way, it's not something bad. It's just be aware of it. And then what can you do with it to help somebody else who doesn't have that?
I think it's important that you're not, don't be afraid to tell the allies what you need them to do. There's a lot of allies, a lot of people that want to help that don't know how to. Tell them what you need so that they know. Okay. Um, and then I just wanted to throw this out too. I also know that there's a lot of members with throughout every marginalized community I can think of offhand is thinking about self-defense. How can they protect themselves out there? I know we don't have a huge amount of time to get into that, so I just want to let people know if you are thinking about getting a firearm, if you're thinking about getting pepper spray, any kind of self-defense, talk to me. Security@gmail.com. I can tell you everything you need to know about it and whether or not, even if it's something that you should do. Because quite honestly, we've had we've had just nonstop people from our communities coming to us looking to get a permit to carry because they're afraid. And I understand it, but a gun is not going to keep you safe, especially if you're not trained, honestly, 95% of the people who have a permit to carry will never pull their gun. The only thing that's really going to keep a person safe is you. Everything else is a tool. I am more than happy to talk about any kind of self-defense things that would fit you. Okay. So please reach out to us if you have questions about that or you're thinking about that. Just be very conscious about because of where we're at, just for as an example, say you're going to go to a protest here in Minnesota and you're going to carry your firearm because it's legal, you have a permit to carry, you can, right? Say you get to that protest, say there's a fight that breaks out. All of a sudden now the cops stop you, you have a gun on you. And I've had this happen to my friends. You then get arrested because the thought is, why would you bring a gun to a peaceful protest? Right? So even when we're talking about self-defense, we really, really, really need to really think about not just if it's going to keep us safe, but could it also put us in danger too? Okay. So that's why I'm just like, if you want to talk about it, please email us. We'll be more than happy to talk about it.
It sounds like it'd be a good partnership to do a self-defense class.
We started a
For the-
community training, actually.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
Mhm.
they do those quite often here, self-defense classes that are led by queer folks. Yeah, because just going to a regular one sometimes doesn't feel safe for queer people
Right.
either. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I was gonna say the three of us, Kimmy and Sam and I, we were talking about could we do like a camp or like a weekend safety training
Yeah.
queer gathering? So there's ideas out there for sure. And yeah, I
I
really
would go
love all
to
the
that.
things. I know, right? Sign me up.
If
A
anybody
weekend.
needs anything from me, either in the future, anybody on the call, anybody who's listening to the recording, please feel free to reach out. The Transformation Project, you can find us on all the socials and our website. If for some reason you need something from us here in South Dakota, just let me know. Or if you just want to chat or whatever, just throwing it out there to anybody who might need support or whatever.
I love that. I'm just gonna say too, I mean, I think a lot of our friends who live in Wisconsin and Superior, Wisconsin, which is across the bridge 10 minutes away, but it's a different situation in Wisconsin, and folks feel differently about that too. And so I think there could be some connections there with the rural, settings that you're in, Jack, and you could
Yep.
probably continue to share wisdom with those folks. And I'll definitely put all the folks' contact information in a place where it's easy to find. Heather, you're already on our website, but I'll share yours too if you're okay with that.
Yeah, you
Um,
can share my Trans Northland email. It's fine.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, yeah, I know I've been kind of on our Zoom call putting in the chat, like share questions if you have any, and I haven't seen any come through for a couple of folks who are in here. Um, oh, okay, cool. Actually, someone just shared that they have done firearms training before. So yeah, I think there's a lot of connections here in our local community where we could talk more about what that could look like in the future. But ultimately, I'm going to try to wrap us up here. I just want to say thank you again to Kimmy and Sam and Heather and Jack for taking the time to join us and just to share the wisdom that you have from experience and your training and all of that. It really is a gift for us as a community because that's, again, we're talking about what is your role in community, right? Y'all are doing this work, you're thinking about it regularly, and those of us who aren't, always have a lot to learn from you. So thank you to each of y'all. Thanks to the folks who were able to hop into the Zoom call here at the last minute and join us, and for folks who are watching after the fact. We're just really glad you found this, and we hope that it's given you some helpful tools and things to think about in your life, in your family, neighborhood, workplace, wherever it is that you go and want to feel good and safe. So like we all said, you can always reach out to the folks at Security, to Jack, to Heather and myself and our other board members at Trans Northland. We always love to hear from community folks. And yeah, with that, I think I'll just say take good care of yourselves, watch out for each other, and just a reminder that we take care of us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thanks for
Yeah, thank you.
facilitating this conversation.
Appreciate it.